What's going on, everybody? It is Pure Sards here. Welcome back to a new tutorial video. This is the second tutorial I've done on this channel. Anyway, today I'm going to be looking at how to make your Cinema 4D and your Photoshop text look the absolute best that it can by going by 3 different parts. All the parts will be time-stamped down below, so you guys can go skip to the part you already need to be at. So if you already got your text and you just want to make it look good, definitely go to that part. If you're needing to know some fonts, that'll be the first part. Or if you need to know how to make Cinema 4D text, that'll be the third part. So that'll be all down in the description below. And before we get this video started, can we hit 10 likes? I'd really appreciate it if we could. Also, subscribe if you're new and comment something great about your day, and maybe I'll feature your comment in the next video. But anyway, let's get started, you guys. And okay, so for the first part, it's definitely about your guys' selection on fonts. And, this looks good, but, if I'm being really honest here, it wouldn't look good in a banner where, I see a lot of people mess up by this, where they choose a font that looks good, yes, but it just doesn't fit in the style of what you're trying to go for. After all, your banners are definitely to advertise. It's not necessarily to add a header. It is definitely the main purpose of a banner is to advertise your channel. If you have a good looking banner, most likely, or good looking thumbnails, most likely, someone's going to be clicking on your channel. So you definitely don't want to go with a font that is kind of hard to read. You want a font that is very clear and straight to the point, where if you look at the font, you can still read what it is without having to pause and look. Where, if you have these A's, those are kind of cool if that's a specific thing where you're going for, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily look like an A. So you can choose a font like this, but it's very selective, and your main goal is to look for something that is very legible, like this Jungle Adventurer here, where it doesn't look necessarily like super nice, but it is. I'm sorry about the background, by the way, but it is very legible, and that is your main goal. So all the font that I'll be using in this video for the Cinema 4D and the Photoshop, because I'm going to be using 2 different ones for a very good reason, they'll be linked down below, so you guys can go check those out. But yeah, that definitely ends the first part. You can look at cartoon and stuff like that, and like I said, the same thing. There's just little things you want to look out for. If they have these little lines in them, don't use the font. That's just weird. Like something like this, it looks cool, but it could potentially be a little illegible and stuff like that. Especially something like this or like this. You don't want to go for fonts. You don't want to do something stupid. Advertised already. If you use this Grinch, it's a decent font, but it's obviously for the movie The Grinch. So stuff like that you want to stay away, because a lot of people on this website like to mimic fonts. Like if I show you in the sci-fi, it could already be like Star Wars, Batman. You got Transformers. I don't even know what this is, but I can tell you right now that is from something. Another Transformers. You got stuff like this. You got ESPN. I mean, they're not even hiding the fact that they're stealing that font. The Mandalorian, which actually I'm going to download that because I really like that. Regardless if it's for the Mandalorian or not, it's kind of hard to tell because it's a really nice font. Aliens, you got Back to the Future, you got more Transformers and stuff like that. You just really want to stay away from something that's like a clear ripoff, but something like the Mandalorian would be okay. You could still use these fonts, because this one isn't super if you look at that, other than it being called Mandalore, you wouldn't really be able to tell that was something that was already used. But if you look at something like Back to the Future or ESPN or Transformers or like Star Wars or Batman Forever, most likely more than a few people are going to pick up on the fact that font's already been used. So you definitely want to steer clear of something that's been heavily used, or through this, commercially, not necessarily just a font that everyone uses. That's okay, but definitely stuff that's been used in highly commercial uses, so like ESPN and stuff like that. So when you open up Cinema 4D, this is what you're going to get right off the bat, is just your plane, your field, and a bunch of random stuff. If you've never used Cinema 4D before, I'm going to make this a very simplistic rendition of a tutorial. If you have used Cinema 4D, I'm sorry, this is going to sound really cringy and straightforward, but I'm definitely putting this tutorial out for more people that haven't used it rather than people who have definitely used it. If you've used a lot of Cinema 4D and you want like a more in-depth tutorial, you can join my Discord and just shoot me a message. Hey man, how do you do this? And I'll probably show you anyway, just because that's more for specific people rather than a whole. So definitely join the Discord down below if you're interested in that. But anyway, let's get started with the tutorial. You're gonna want to hit MoGraph first thing. It's always going to be here. You don't need to install any plugins. You're going to want to hold it and then come down and then just let go, and then that'll add the text. So now that your text showed up, the first thing you want to do is, now that you're looking down here at the MoText, you're going to want to make sure it's selected. If it's not selected, it'll be white, and once it's selected, it'll be yellow, and you'll see a bunch of stuff down here. You'll notice text. I really don't like to mess with like the looks of the text before I do this, and it's going to be the align, and you want to make sure it hits middle, because then your text will follow the middle of the text rather than the left or the right, and it just makes it look a little bit better. Then you can go ahead and switch your name. Let's just do my name for this tutorial. You can obviously use your name, and then make the depth go to 50. And then once it's at 50, you'll notice like, yeah, it gets thicker, and that's the whole purpose of the align. And then this is the font where you want to use. I have a really bad CPU, so Cinema 4D is really hard to record with, but it still works. So I'm sorry if it's laggy or anything. I'm trying to get a new CPU in the near future, so the tutorials for Cinema 4D will look a bit better. But I have a very specific font I want to use. It's the American Captain. Again, I went back. This is the Captain America logo, but it's one of those fonts that just look really, really good. And it's like super sharp in certain edges, but while also being super rounded at others. So I feel like this font is like perfect for Cinema 4D in the sense of tutorial. You can use pretty much any font you want, but the link for this font will be down below. It is called American Captain, though. So then after you have this, you want to click on the text, Control C, and then Control V. That copies it. If you're on a Mac, I'm pretty sure it's Command C, Command V. I don't know much about Mac, so I'm sorry if you're a Mac user watching this, but I'm pretty sure that's right. I haven't used a MacBook since like 2014, so it's been a while, like six years. So then the first thing you want to do is make sure you select the copied version, not the one we just messed with, but the one we just copied. You're going to select it, make the depth go to 30, so that's 20 less than what it was, and then you're going to go over to this caps area right here, and then you want to make sure it's fillet, I don't know. But then you'll notice that it looks a bit different, and then you can mess with these. I really don't mess with these, just because I think it looks good, because you're really not seeing much of it. It's basically just making it, oh, I messed up. I accidentally just started moving it freely. You're just going to move it back to about the middle. And once it's in the middle, you'll notice that it doesn't really have to be perfect because you're not looking at a top view. You're looking right here, and you'll notice that it has like these little edges that that peek out, which just add a little bit of depth to your text. If you don't like this style, you can obviously skip this step, but I recommend keeping it. Before we group these, you're going to want to create materials, just new material. Just create 2 of them because you're going to want 2 different colors. Then you're just going to make sure the first material is selected over here, and then this is where you're going to edit the material. For these colors, I'm going to go with a blue. You just select it, and then it'll change to blue, and then you want to double click you're going to double click this. Yeah, you're going to double click this down here. I'm sorry. I thought you could double click this and it would do the same thing. And then you can mess with a little bit of the effects, but the effects are really tricky, and this is where a lot of people mess up when they're making the color. You can definitely just keep it as a matte color. You can go ahead and it'll just be the color, but you can add a little bit more vibrancy to your guys' text by doing this, which I usually do the glow, and then you notice the glow, when you render it, it's going to be ridiculously bright. So what I do is the outer strength, I make it 100, and then the inner strength, I make it 30. And then just keep the radius, the random, and the frequency the same, and it just adds like a little subtle glow to your guys' text, which makes it look really good. That's all I do for this. And then for the second material, you just want to make it a darker version of that color. Just keep it in the same area over here, just a darker version. You could also do like this, where it's like kind of the same color, and that'll work too. It's really up to you guys. You could do completely different colors, but I'm gonna keep it to the kind of the color scheme. And then again, go to color, make this 30, and make this 100, so it matches. You don't want it to not match. And then now you notice that the text is there, and you want to group these, and then group objects, and then you can just render it here. But for an additional step that I like to do with all my text renders is I go over here to not there, sorry, right here. And then as you're holding down on this little bend right here, you go to wrap, and then you'll drag the wrap to where you see the arrow going down on, like as you're hovering over the text. You do that, and then your text starts to wrap around this little wrap. I usually just drag this rather than rescaling it, because rescaling it kind of makes it look weird. So I usually just pull this out, and then now that your text is a little bit more legible, you click on the wrap with the rotate tool, and then you just kind of like rotate it to fit the style you want. I usually just go up a little to like make it like a little smile, I should say. And then for the text, you are done, and then you're just gonna add a camera, and then you're gonna make sure you're viewing the camera by clicking this little icon here. Once it's white, you're in your camera's view, and you can adjust your camera the same way you would move around. And then I just do this, you just focus it. And then a little extra thing that a lot of people don't understand or don't know about is that you can change your field of view by right clicking the move, and then you can change the camera's tilt by right clicking the rotate. I don't think anything happens, but I think that's just another field of view if you right click that. But I usually just do this, do that, and then change the field of view out a little bit. And then this is like the perfect scenario for your text. You would also want to add a Lightroom if you have one. I will be using a Lightroom, or you just want to mess with lights to make sure whenever you render it, it looks the absolute best it can. But that is going to be for a different tutorial on how to do Lightrooms and how to do lights. So that is how you make your text look in Cinema 4D. That's how you're going to pose it. And let's go definitely into the Photoshop part of this. Okay, so now that we're in Photoshop, I'm going to be showing you how to do the 2D text part of this, because it's a little easier, and it'll just go by a little bit quicker than the Cinema 4D one. So for the font I'm going to be using, it's called Morganite. It's just a really nice font, in my opinion. It just looks really clean. It's really thin, so it's just really good. But you'll notice it's a really ugly color, and don't fret about the color whenever you're writing it. It really doesn't matter, because all you're going to be doing is just layer styling it and making it look, better. So if we're looking at it, you're gonna, like, I have styles saved, but I'm going to be doing this without using my styles, because that kind of just defeats the purpose of me showing you. So you want to inner glow just a little bit, especially when you're using a thin font like this. You want to make sure the size is down so it actually shows, the edges in the glow. You want to do the color. You can use a color overlay. I don't personally use a color overlay. I use a gradient overlay because I think it looks better. I can't use this gradient because that's the gradient of my background. So I'm going to be doing another blue color like I did before. So then I'm just going to use a light baby blue. I'm going to copy this color if I can. Doesn't look like it has the option to do that. That kind of sucks. So then I'm just going to go back to the color and then just scroll down and up a little bit. So it has a nice contrast. And so it looks really nice. You can also use like green and blue, or colors that complement each other. But I would refrain against using like a red and blue, or like a green and red, stuff like that. It just, the two colors are like, if you can look right here, the blend just doesn't look good and stuff like that. So colors that definitely complement each other. So like a yellow green, a blue green, like a light blue and a light green. Like a baby blue and a lime green. That's probably the best blue and green you could probably use. Or like an orange and a red, or an orange and a yellow, just stuff like that that complements each other, just to make sure that you don't get ugly text. So a stroke is completely optional, and you can use, I always use outside though. Don't use center because it just looks bad. Don't use inside because it just ruins the text. Just always outside. Size it up a bit and make a stroke. I usually use white because it makes it stand out a bit more. But the stroke should complement your background to make sure your text sticks out. So if the text doesn't stick out with a white or a black, so I would definitely switch it. And sorry about that. I had to cut a couple things out because someone was walking behind me. Drop shadow is optional, but I really like it. I usually use normal because it makes it stick out the most. The distance, I just usually switch the distance and switch the size down. Go the distance like right there, and then the size I usually bring down. And then so you kind of see the drop shadow, and you can change the angle as well, so it just looks like it's coming from a different area. Like again, that's just really it makes it stick out, but it's also completely optional. If you don't like text that like it sticks out a lot, I would just adjust some of the ways you make these and just make it to the way you like it. But this is the general area that I usually go for. And it just makes your 2D text look really good. You can also layer style it by doing, like, if you have it as a text logo and you don't rasterize it, you can click this text icon up here if you have it, and you can do like arc, and then you can just size this down, and it has like a little bit of an arc, and just adds a little bit more to your text. But now that the 2D text is very straightforward. You just want a nice legible font and it to stick out. So because that's your main focus is definitely your name, and so you definitely want that to stick out over some other things. So now that that's done, let's go ahead and move on to the Cinema 4D part of this. I just have it pulled up right here, so let me just drop it in. And then this is after we rendered it. And so this is the text after we rendered it. It probably sometimes it won't fit all the way with the pose, so you could just resize it and just move it around to make it look like it's a part of what you're making. There, it's in the middle. Let's just enter it. So now you have your text. You can see the little bit of a glow. It kind of just sticks out. It just looks overall. It looks pretty good already, but you can make this look a bit better. But if you remember what we did in the tutorial on the profile picture, I made another layer. So just Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V if you're on a Mac. So then you'll just hide that layer as well, and then you're just going to open this layer, the text layer, the first one, and then you're just going to add a gradient overlay, but it's going to be the same gradient as you use. I'm going to reset it to default, so just because this is the default, you can look at it here. It's just a simple black and white linear with an angle of 135. The scale is 99%, the opacity is 100, and it's on overlay. But I take the opacity down a little bit, so it's lighter up here, darker over here. And then I do inner glow. It's going to be, I'm just going to reset this to default. This is default. This is not the right default. I'm kind of mad. I had it right. But color dodge, opacity up, size a little bit up, actually opacity a little bit down. So you see the little glowing edges on some of the sides, just adds a little bit more depth. I'm going to make this my default. So you guys can go ahead and copy this right here. Since I didn't cover it really well, here it is. You can go ahead and copy it. Or just make it the way it looks best for your text. All text is different, so you can copy this and then just adjust it from there to make sure it looks the absolute best it can. But now that the effects are done, you want to unhide this layer, and then you're going to go to filter. You're going to go to filter gallery, and then you're going to do glowing edges again, because again this is going to add a lot of depth. You're going to go to lighter color, and then you're just going to make the opacity 60. So now you see you have the edges, and sometimes this doesn't really look good with text, and sometimes it does. It's really situational. So if you guys are looking at the glowing edges and you're like, man, that does not look good, just go ahead and delete it and just leave with the effects, and it doesn't hurt it. It definitely helps it if it doesn't look completely good. But I added it in the tutorial just in case if your text fits into that situation where that makes it look better. But anyway, that's going to end it for this tutorial. I hope you guys really did enjoy this. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. Go check out my Twitter, and my Fiverr links down below if you guys want to commission any art from me are also going to be in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys all in the next one. I'll see you later. It's been Pierce, guys. Bye.